Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. Please know that everyone is automatically muted to keep the background noise to a minimum. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the question panel on the control panel. You can send in your questions anytime during the presentation, and we will collect these and address the question and answers at the end. Today's session is being recorded and will be sent in a follow-up email, but you can also go to the agency's website where the recording will be posted. With that, I'd like to introduce Stacy Duncan, Executive Director of the agency. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, and thanks for joining us for this presentation today, submitting a strong application for the New York Forward Loan Fund program in Broome County. My name is Stacy Duncan, Executive Director of the agency, which is Broome County IDA and Broome County Local Development Corp. While the information you'll learn today about the New York Forward program is uniform across New York State, what we wanted to do is connect directly with the businesses located here in Broome County. Next slide. So a little bit about the agency and our involvement in the New York Forward program. The agency is a county-wide economic development organization set up through New York State general municipal law. Our vision is to be a dynamic and approachable driver of economic development here in Broome County. So our service area is all of the businesses located here in Broome County. We promote and leverage all available resources and our strengths to foster economic growth and prosperity in an ethical and transparent manner. The IDA and the LDC we are not government units per se. We're not county employees, but we're considered quasi-governmental, and we're subject to authorities' budget oversight as well as New York State public meetings and open meeting laws. We provide economic development assistance through a number of ways, through what's most commonly known as a pilot program or a property tax abatement program, through bond issuance, tax-exempt bond issuance, as well as revolving loan programs, which I'll talk a little bit about more in the next slide. But also, we generally try to provide information and technical assistance to businesses here in Broome County. Sorry about that, that's good right there. So let's jump to our loan programs. Currently, we administer 4 local loan programs. We have one point of stipulation: IDAs are not enabled to loan our own operating funds per New York State law. There was an emergency order because of COVID-19 that didn't enable IDAs to create loan programs specifically for the purposes of addressing COVID-19 impacts. But historically, the Broome County IDA has had a number of revolving loan programs from federal resources, one from the Appalachian Regional Commission and one from the Economic Development Authority, and then third, a program that we established in 2018 with Broome County government. So a little bit about those. Our STEED Loan Fund is a low-interest loan program to support the creation and expansion of small businesses. This, because of the source of the income through the ARC, does enable us to service businesses outside of Broome County, but that's our only program in which we can do that. Our BDF, or our Business Development Loan Fund, are low interest loans to promote the development of small businesses within Broome County. And our BRNE, or our Business Retention and Expansion Loan Fund, provides low interest loans for small businesses up to $50,000. And this is the only program that we currently have that enables businesses to refinance existing debt. As a response to COVID-19, we also established, within taking monies from these existing loan programs, the COVID-19 Emergency Loan Fund. This is low interest loans for small businesses in need of economic support directly related to the loss of revenue from COVID-19, and that program is still operational. So what was our response to COVID-19? A little bit about how we tried to be immediately responsive to the needs of businesses here in Broome County. As mentioned, we transitioned some of our existing loan funds into the COVID-19 Emergency Loan Fund. Some of the The requirement features of that are no principal and interest payments can be waived for up to a year, and we've waived our application and closing fees, as well as the 10% equity requirement. And we've tried to expedite our loan review and closing process. But in addition to that, we've also tried to be responsive and become a central source of information for businesses in Broome County. We created the COVID-19 Economic Response, Recovery, and Resiliency Task Force. This is a partnership with the Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce. We have a number of active work groups that are looking at things like business continuity, workforce and talent attraction, as well as tourism and quality of life. As I mentioned, these groups are meeting actively on a biweekly and monthly basis to come up with a long-term strategy for economic recovery. We also published some informational resources that are available on our website, theagency-ny.com, on our resources page. We published the Resiliency Toolkit for Broome County businesses, which is a comprehensive guide of financial resources available at the local, state, and federal levels for businesses and displaced workers. When we surveyed businesses immediately in reaction to COVID in late March, we found just below the need for immediate financial assistance was the need for a central location for information. So the toolkit provides information on all things related to federal stimulus, to state and local funding programs, and other financial resources. We also produced the Broome County Reopening Playbook. Similarly, these are both digital publications, a comprehensive guide of federal and New York State reopening guidelines and best practices for businesses. So what we do with this playbook, as we've been calling it, we launched that upon the phase 1 reopening here in the Southern Tier region. So in that, and we update these actively on a weekly basis. You'll find up-to-date information on all of the guidelines related to the phased reopening for businesses here, and we'll continue to update that as more businesses and industries are able to open. And then, as I discussed previously, our emergency loan fund was something we established as well in response to COVID-19. And then leading us to where we are today, the agency has had a long relationship and been a client of the National Development Council. It's been a great relationship for both providing not only access to financial resources, but technical assistance as well as professional development. NDC has been a tremendous resource here in our community for many years. And it led us through those conversations as a client of NDC. We identified the opportunity to be a partner in the New York Forward Loan Program. With NDC being one of the CDFIs that is able to provide funding for businesses, and as a client of NDC, we were afforded a unique opportunity to invest $100,000 of our existing loan funds to leverage now a $2 million local loan pool. So the agency partnered with NDC to generate this program, and we're going to learn more about that today. We also wanted to make sure that you had some information on an array of local financial and business development assistance. Other resources here in our community are the Small Business Development Center, Greater Binghamton SCORE, the Entrepreneurship Assistance Center, Binghamton Local Development Corporation, the City of Binghamton, which also has some emergency loan funds, as well as the Town of Union Local Development Corp. We can put this slide up during the Q&A so that you're able to write down contact information as we go. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Bob Sweet with the National Development Council. Bob, NDC has an office here in Binghamton, here in our building, and they've been, as I mentioned, a tremendous partner and resource for us with economic and community development. So Bob's going to talk about the New York Forward program. Bob.
Thank you, Stacy. As Stacy mentioned, the National Development Council, which has been around for a half century, has a longstanding partnership with the Broome County IDA to advance whatever economic development, community development, and housing needs that it has. And that's pretty much what NDC has done for most of its history, provide a panoply of services and products, from technical assistance and advisement to training, to helping communities develop affordable housing, to advance economic development and community development projects. And the focus of this webinar today is to talk about the small business services and products that we bring to our client communities all over the United States. Just a quick kind of background, NDC was founded again about over 50 years ago. We're headquartered in New York City. However, we have offices and relationships in client communities from coast to coast. I'm, Stacy pointed out, based in Binghamton, but cover primarily the northeastern part of the United States. So with that, let's get into the main focus of the presentation. This is another partnership that we have with the New York State Forward Loan Program. This is an Empire State Development Corporation program. NDC, along with other lenders, have been charged by the state of New York to process requests for this program. So all inquiries are focused through the ESD website, and then ESD decides which loan requests are best suited for the participating CDFIs. We have our colleague Casey Noel from CPC, whose particular charge is to work with landlords and property owners. NDC, along with other CDFIs, other organizations, are focused primarily on operating company assistance. So the hallmark of the program is to provide what we understand is currently needed capital and capital that's going to be needed in the future for small businesses throughout New York State. It is a complement to the federal or SBA PPP program, but is not the PPP program. And we'll talk about that relationship later on in the presentation. But I do want to stress that the program is meant to be easy to use, even though it's primarily automated. We do everything online. There is always someone you can speak to. We can help you navigate the program. We can help demystify what's needed, because the key to this is to get working capital, which is needed by small businesses all over the state, into your hands as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. Okay. So just some of the parameters of the program. The maximum loan amount is $100,000, right? And it's based on 3 months of revenue for for-profits and 3 months of expenses for not-for-profit borrowers. So let's just say you're a for-profit business and your average monthly income is $40,000. Based on this formula, you could get up to 120, but the reality is, even though you're based on the formula, you can get 120,000. The maximum loan amount is 100,000, which is still a goodly sum of money. And the money rates and the cost of the money is very low. It's 2% for not-for-profits and 3% for small businesses. These are fixed rates. It's a 5-year note or 5-year term. First year is interest only. All right, so let's say you got the maximum loan of $100,000 and you're a for-profit business. You have your first year, your first 12 months, an obligation to pay back $3,000 of it. And then from that point on, for the next 4 years, you have equal principal and interest payments on that money. Right? The collateral requirements are scant. They're very minimal. We use a UCC blanket filing. You have to provide 20% or for a person at 20% or greater owner of the company. You have to personally guarantee the money. And then the use of the funds is pretty ecumenical. It's under the broad heading of working capital. And what does that mean? Next slide, please. Okay, any operating expenses, any normal routine operating expenses that your business has, this money can be put towards. And some of the specifics are rent payments, covering payroll costs, utilities, any required insurances. If you have to have anything that's COVID supply or modification related, you have to put in, hand stations or separators in your business. And then for those businesses that carry inventory, to cover the cost of inventory. All right, and we could talk about others. Okay, so as I pointed out, this is for small businesses and not-for-profits. So some of the requirements are that you've had to be affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Most businesses can demonstrate that, unfortunately, very emphatically. You have to be in business for at least a year prior to the application, okay? Unfortunately, at this time, if you received an SBA PPP loan or economic injury, disaster, or EIDL loan, you're not eligible to apply, okay? You can't have a revenue of more than $3 million. You can't have more than 20 employees, FTEs. But we find most of the applications that we have processed so far through this program, if most businesses have less than 20 employees, have less than $3 million in sales. So if you haven't received a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, the chances are very high that you can meet those other tests very easily, okay? Next slide, please. Okay. There are a few types of operations that are not eligible to apply as well. Most of these are under the broad heading of what we call in the business sin businesses. So such things as adult bookstores, massage parlors, strip clubs, anything to do with wagering, or pawn shops, those types of things. There are certain class of businesses you can see up here, branch banks, corporate-owned franchises, those types of things. Trailer storage yards are not eligible, but most businesses are eligible. That's why we put up the list of what's not eligible, because most businesses are eligible. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, here are some of the, on the right are some of the basic eligibility requirements of the program. Again, as I said before, you have to be in business for at least 1 year prior to the loan application. You have to have a positive cash flow for the 12 months prior to March 1st, 2020. Why? We need to test your ability to pay the loan back. We certainly don't want to make a loan to a business that at the end of the day can't pay it back. That's not helping the business. So we have to test your ability to pay it back. But again, we will look at every possible available amount of cash in the company or potential cash in the company to repay the loan in order to qualify you and get this needed working capital to you. You have to complete an application process, which again, we will help you navigate the system in terms of what the requirements are, the documents, how to upload those, how to fill out certain forms, all right, if you're a for-profit, and the same for not-for-profit. So on the right are some of the basic documents we need to do the processing and the underwriting, all right. There's a particular focus geographically for the National Development Council. We are making loans in our client communities. This happens to be a specific presentation for Broome County, but we have other relationships in other counties throughout New York State that you can see on the left. And again, besides a special profile, we also have a borrower profile. So the focus of the program from New York State is to provide credit to African American entrepreneurs, Hispanic entrepreneurs, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, businesses that are located in areas with high rates of poverty, unemployment, and housing medians that are well below the area medians. So we are here to help you navigate the system. You don't do this every day. Your focus is on running your business and returning it to a normative operating situation and profitability. Again, even though it's an automated system, we personalize it, and there's always someone you can talk to, pick up the phone and talk to, and help get to the point where we can tell you, yes, you've completed the loan, yes, you're approved, and this is what we need to do next to get the money to you. Next slide, please. Okay, I know this is hard to see, but the first step in this, every loan application, every request has to go through New York State. It has to go through the NewYorkLoanFund.com portal. Once the state gets it, they will then distribute it to the appropriate lending entity, participating lending entity like NDC and CPC, and then we'll take it from there. So once they're assigned to us, you'll get an invitation to go through our loan portal And that's where the process begins, where we process your application, we help you navigate the system, and we move as quickly as possible. We can move quickly because we've got an entire team dedicated to this endeavor. We'll move you as quickly as possible through our loan application to a closing, to a funding of your credit need. Next slide, please. Okay. So as you go to the website, you'll see there is a number of partners that work with us in the state to get the New York Forward loan proceeds into businesses. This is the one you would connect with. This is the NDC logo. For Broome County, it's NDC that is the entity that is doing loans in Broome County. And here's basically here's the pathway to getting money from the program to you. You do your pre-application, and through New York State, you go through the New York Loan Fund portal. They'll match you to the appropriate lender, and in this case, NDC in Broome County. We'll invite you to apply to our portal, to our website. We'll help you complete the application. And once we all have all the information that we need, we'll do the underwriting and review, okay? We'll approve you. We'll send you on to electronic signature, which you need to do to get the money into your funds. And then we'll wire transfer the money to the identified account for the business. Okay, so what are some of the minimal things that we're looking for to make certain that you're eligible to, or determine that your eligibility to pay the loan? We'll do a very quick analysis. We're going to look at cash flow. We're going to see if it's adequate enough, it's greater than the debt service requirements of the loan. And there's just some basic information that we need. We either need a 2019 federal tax return, although we're finding a lot of people have not filed it yet. They filed for an extension. So if you can give us a 2019 profit and loss and balance sheet statement, we can use that information to determine your available cash flow. And the reason we're looking at 2019 is because it was your last quote unquote normal year, with the thinking that, you know, the purpose of this program is to get working capital into your hands so you can return to a normal operating situation. So we're basing it on your last normal year of operation. And once we come to the decision point that yes, indeed, you have enough cash flow to repay the debt service requirements of the New York Forward loan, then we'll approve you for financing. And there's a reason that it's a 5-year loan and the year one is interest only. We realize that it's going to take companies longer, because this is a prolonged health crisis, unfortunately, to get back to a normative operating environment. So that year of interest only gives you time to catch your breath, and it's only in the second year that you have to begin to actually pay back the principal portion of the loan. Next slide, please. So without getting into too much jargon, we're looking at income before taxes. So besides actual profitability, we'll consider adding to your ability, your cash flow to pay back the loan, any officer compensation that's in excess of what you may need to live on, any interest costs that you paid off in the course of last year, rent, if that's paid to a third party or someone else. And of course, we always factor in depreciation into the cash flow analysis, okay? We'll also consider any other existing debt service you pay, because we want to make certain that you can handle all your debt service payments, just not the New York Forward loan debt service payment, but any previous debt service requirements that you have. And after all that analysis, we hopefully can come to the conclusion, yes, indeed, you have enough cash flow based on 2019 to satisfy your existing debt service obligations and the new New York Forward loan debt service obligations. Next, please. All right, that is the end of my presentation. We paste this in such a way that everyone has adequate time to make their presentations. You'll next be given a short presentation by our partner agency, the Community Preservation Corporation, which is focused on the landlord borrowing needs. but we also wanted to do it in such a way that there was plenty of time to answer any specific questions regarding anything you've heard today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Stacy, for having us. Again, my name is Casey Noel. I am an assistant vice president at CPC, focused on lending and initiatives. And just by way of background, Community Preservation Corporation is a nonprofit, affordable housing and community revitalization finance company that provides flexible capital solutions, what we like to think of as a fresh thinking and a collaborative approach to the complex issues facing communities. And I think I speak for everyone that there may not have been a more complex issue facing communities than COVID-19. So we're trying our best to figure out how we can put our many, many years of experience lending in the housing market. We've been at it since 1974, and we want to make sure that we can figure out a way to partner with folks like NDC and the agency to make sure that we're here and able to provide some assistance. So since 1974, CPC has invested a little over $11 billion to provide about 200,000 of residential units across New York State. We are both upstate as well as in New York City. And over that same time period, we've provided about a little less than 1 million in stable housing. So we are very proud of the work that we've done, and we're very proud to be part of this initiative. And we're going to dig in a little bit. And I will warn everyone who's listening, you will hear things that are very similar to what Bob has already said, because it's essentially the same program. Our focus, as he's indicated, is more so on small landlords, and I'll define what that means to us in a second. So if you can please do the next slide. Great, starting right off, I know everyone has a specific idea of what a small landlord is. In the confines of this program, New York Forward Loan Fund, a small landlord is someone who owns no more than 200 residential units, and no single property that's being applied for assistance can be larger than 50 units. Pretty straightforward. Again, the goal here is to provide a hand for economic hardship that has been a result of COVID-19, specifically rental income that's been impacted essentially from tenants not being able to pay their rent due to the lack of work or having to quarantine. Where the small landlords located for this program? The properties must be located in low and middle income census tracts, or the rents that are being collected are at 80% of AMI. There are certain things that, again, you'll find familiar because Bob has already reviewed it from the small business side, but the applicants, the small landlords, really have to attest to the fact that they have had positive cash flow for the preceding, the prior 12 months to the COVID-19 pandemic. They must show to us that they're current on their mortgage as well as current on their taxes. And in lieu of that, they may be pursuing an active forbearance agreement with their lender. All of that, once you provide that information to us, we can make an assessment and hopefully provide assistance in the form of a New York Forward loan. The owner must also provide to us pretty straightforward things such as a rent roll showing which tenants are paying, which tenants are not paying as a result of COVID-19. And that will roll into a hardship letter, again, stipulating that tenants have experienced job loss or something detrimental to their ability to pay. We are lenders. We're asset-based lenders, and so we want to make sure that the property that we're essentially lending against is in good condition. That means that if there are any violations, New York City, most properties have some sort of violations associated with it. New York's upstate is slightly different. You have to be able to show to us that there are no violations, and so that is in line with having not only a property in good condition, but making sure that your tenants are not in any sort of harm's way due to life and safety violations. You also have to attest as a small landlord that you're not going to try to evict the tenants who are not paying due to COVID. And as I already indicated, the last bullet point or just reemphasizes that we want to make sure that you're current on your taxes. Next slide, please. Thank you. This process, I've been telling Anne and Bob that their slide that describes kind of like the flow of the application process is much better than mine, but it deserves to be reiterated. You submit an application by going to newyorkloanfund.com, and then that process and that portal will notify us as CPC that there is an application that has matched with us. We will go through that. We have loan officers who are dedicated to this initiative, and they'll go through, they will create an assessment, create a loan size, and then be in touch with you to kind of walk you through that process. Hopefully everything goes well, you get approved, and right now, once we have all the paperwork and everything signed up, we can do same week wire transfers into the provided account. Next slide, please. The terms are almost identical to the small business side, so what Bob reviewed. There is a small distinction that's relatively new. Previously, we had been providing loans that were maxed out at $100,000. That still remains the case. Previously, we were looking at 3 months of rental income and providing assistance up to 3 months. This week, we're changing it and increasing it to 6 months. The max loan amount still will be $100,000, but we understand that COVID-19 is something that is still affecting renters as well as landlords. So in agreement with kind of the powers that be, we upped that amount to 6 months of rental income loss. So we should be issuing larger loan amounts if the applicant really needs that. So that's the only real distinction. It is also important to note that there will be a personal guarantee of repayment that's required with all these loans, and the interest rates are the same as on the small business side. Next slide, please. And I think I'm not going to step on Stacy's toes, but happy to answer any questions that arise.
Great, thank you everyone. So there is the opportunity to submit questions within the control panel. So we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to get those through if you do have any questions. And I'll just mention again that this session is recorded and will be posted to the agency's website to reference and share further. And we just had one question that came in about contact information. If people wanted to contact Bud and Casey, what's the best way to do that?
Well, if it's an operating company, it's not a small landlord or property owner request, you can call me directly. In fact, that's probably the best thing to do because I can help pre-qualify you before you go to the New York, forward loan site. Our goal is to take you down the money trail, not the bunny trail. So give me a call. I can be reached at 677-0852, and I will answer the phone. I'm funny like that. And we can talk about what, you talk about your inquiry, and I can let you know if, we'll go through the basic eligibility questions, and hopefully you meet all those, and then I can tell you to go on to New York Forward and start the process. And Casey?
Yep. So similarly, you can reach me. Email is the best way to reach me, and it's cnoel@communityp.com. And I think we should be able to send that around so that everyone gets the spelling correct.
Yes, and so I'll post that with the recording, the contact information for any follow-up questions. And you also received my email, akelly@nbconline.org, with your registration. So feel free to reach out to me, and I'll get you connected with the correct person. Another question that came in: what's the typical turnaround time? from application to getting your money?
I'll take this, and maybe Casey and CPC have different experience because they're dealing with a different asset class. But we find once it goes to the state, it's kind of a mixed a bag in terms of how soon it gets to us. That's why I think it's important to first call me first, then we can get you to the state. Once we get it, and if we get all the information, we can turn the request around in 5 to 7 business days. Again, that's if we get all the information, get all the questions answered, have everything we need to make an informed decision, because we have an entire team dedicated to this. So 5 to 7 business days is probably the fastest you can get it turned around on our end.
And on the CPC end, I can't emphasize enough that for a lot of the borrowers that we've been interacting with on this program, this is some of the first times that they've been asked for the amount of information we need to process the loan. So there is a bit of back and forth where we're asking for information that we think might be pretty straightforward, but on their end, it might be a little bit difficult to find, collate, and present that information. So we do a good amount of hand-holding. It does take a little bit of while to make sure that information that we need to get from them is all in one place. Well, once that happens, our legal team internally steps in, gets all the correct documentation signed, and if it's approved on a Monday in terms of finalized, fully executed documents, then I think people have been getting their money by Friday.
And are there any restrictions on eligible usage?
Well, you can't use the money to pay personal debts. You can't use the money for personal expenses. They have to be business-related expenses. And as was shown in the slide, I don't know if you can go back. Is you have the ability to go back, Allison, into the slideshow, into the presentation? Let's see, it's back. Keep backing up. We had a list of what's under the heading of working capital. It's pretty generous in terms of what you could use it for. So let's keep going. We're almost there. Okay, here it is. These are any business operating expenses. Now they have to be the operating expenses of the applicant or the business that applies. Because sometimes we find that a company has, the owner of the company has another business, so you can't apply as XYZ company and then use that money for 1, 2, 3 company. It has to be for the applicant. And again, these are some of the root any normative operating expenses that you would incur in the operation of your business on a regular basis. And it's, things like there's rent and there's payroll costs, utilities. As you can see the laundry list here. Okay.
Okay, great. And Casey, did you have any comments on eligible uses and restrictions?
I think Bob hit it pretty square on. I think the only distinction on the landlord side, it's pretty straightforward. The thing that I think gets some people tripped up is when you're operating something like an Airbnb. We've had applicants come to us and say, yeah, I'm a landlord. Well, not exactly the way this program is set up. So that's something that people need to be mindful of. If you're trying to get funds for lost income because your Airbnb is not functioning the way your Airbnb rental is not functioning the way it used to, that's not eligible for this program the way it's set up currently.
And that's the last question that I have here. So Stacy, I'll pass it back to you to close out the session.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you again to Bob and to Casey for participating in our presentation today. Again, I think one of the keys that Bob noted is, and one of the reasons we wanted to do this here is to give you direct access to the technical assistance with Bob or Casey, and if you happen to be a small landlord, and that directly to help you, to walk you through some of that pre-application process, especially if it's something you're not used to doing. please, consider the agency a resource. We have our contact information on the screen currently. And in addition, if you find other forms of financing you're interested in learning more about, our goal is to connect you to the resources that you need to keep your business moving during this challenging time. So with that, again, thanks to Bob, thanks to Casey, and we will make this available, this presentation available following today's webinar. So thank you again, and let us know if there's any questions.